Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Confessional. My name is Katy Hunt, and I'm here to guide you through the good, the bad, and the ugly of the convention world. Oh man, I'm still riding a high from going to a convention again, which is hilarious because I know friends that have gone to several. I have like my one a year that I'm able to go to now, and it's just like I'm so excited about it still. But I will spare you all because I think we've talked enough about it the last 2 weeks. I'm going to give it a break. However, I was thinking about what to record for this episode this week, and not like I don't have a million ideas. It's just trying to like get everything together to figure out what to actually talk about on the show. And I know that at the beginning of this podcast, I talked about some bad roommate experiences. And I figured I'd bring you a couple more today because I really thought about it and how fortunate I am that I don't have a lot of the crazy roommate stories. I gave my Dynamo one back in the day when I was first doing this podcast about the roommate that brought somebody back to the bathroom and trapped us in our room. If you haven't heard that episode, it is, I believe, the fourth episode of the show, Bad Roommates. And that's like the story of all stories that I have. But I do have some other like littler stories as well. And I figured, we've talked about a bunch of good stuff. Let's talk about a couple of crazy wild things this week. And I also enjoy everybody else's bad roommate stories. So guys, if you're listening to the podcast and you've had some pretty wild roommate experiences, please drop me a line. I would love to hear your stories. And I'm sure the rest of the world would as well because drama sells. All right. I guess besides that one, and also the one where Ryan and I had to save an underage drunk girl from one of the people that was rooming with us, because wild. I've had a couple of other moments as far as roomies go. They're not all perfect. What can you do, right? You could plan on having the perfect room, and then that's the weekend that one of your best friends ever decides to be a crazy person, right? All good plans have flaws. I remember back in the day when I was first starting cosplay, it was 2005. And I had just gotten into doing conventions in 2004, and I wanted to share it with everybody. I wanted to bring all of my friends that loved anime. I thought it was for everyone. Just because you love anime and manga and comics does not mean everybody loves conventions. I get that now that I am not 19 years old. But back when I was 19 and dumb, I was like, no, I want my best friends from high school to come and people that are still in high school to come. And of course, by then you're excited because you're old enough to get a hotel room on your own because you're supposedly a full adult, which is not the case. And Boston happened while people were in school / going to college still, so it wasn't going to happen. They could go to Anime Boston. So I had been branching out to other conventions at that time because, of course, anything that was within a half an hour of driving for me was worth going to. Be that Boston, obviously, and his little convention down in Harvard, which I'll get back to later, called Vericon, which I just had to look up because I didn't think it existed anymore, and I don't think it does. I think it stopped in 2017 because that's like the most recent update I see on their website. But what I'm actually talking about is PortCon Maine. Now, in 2004, went to Anime Boston, heard about PortCon Maine, went to PortCon Maine, and at that point in time, the hotel that it was at, to my recollection, reminded me of a Motel 6. And that's not bad. Everybody starts off somewhere. No one's like the Heinz Convention Center or the San Diego Comic-Con Convention Center or anything like that when they start off. But I remember that it was just kind of like a long hallway of things. And it was a cute little convention. We only went for the day that time. And it was like a bunch of rooms that had like different comic books and things. And this guy in a cat dancing costume who I would like to assume is still out there dancing his heart out. Please don't let that illusion be broken for me. But it was fun and it was a good time. And then the following year they had gotten the bigger convention space at a Hilton in Portland, Maine. And I decided that was the one to bring my friends to kind of ease them into the convention world. So it was me and two Sarahs. I want to say there was one other person in the room with us, but my memory is fading, sadly. But the two Sarahs are the ones that we're going to worry about here because that's the story. So, we drive up to Maine. I drive up to Maine, and we all pack stuff. And I had made a couple of makeshift costumes for them because we wanted to go as a big Full Metal Alchemist group because that was the up and rising anime of the time. Yes, I know I have aged myself. Shut up. So, Full Metal Alchemist was just becoming popular, and I had a raging crush on Roy Mustang because who doesn't? Travis Willingham, you beautiful bastard, that voice. Anyways, so I had gone and bought a version of the military uniform for Roy, and we get there. It's still tiny. I mean, it was still tiny then. This is 2005. So, I mean, it's become a much bigger convention to my recollection. They have like the tent outside and everything now they do the events in, but everything was done inside of this hotel. And I'm trying to say, like, I'm trying to think. I don't believe they had the entire hotel at the time because something else might have been sharing the hotel with them. But it wasn't huge. It was fun. I had fun. I was going through the dealer's room. I was like meeting up people from Boston. Like, look at me going to another convention. But I was just the most excited is that we were actually staying over, and I had finally booked a hotel room in my 19 years of life by myself for my friends. You know, I felt like the adult because I was the oldest person in the room. Woo! You know, like big whoop. And I could tell almost right away that the two Sarahs just weren't feeling it. We weren't jiving. It was a really awkward weekend of just like I would see them, but they would spend most of their time up in the hotel room instead of coming downstairs to go and do stuff. And you know, there was a couple of like arguments about it, just like, guys, come downstairs and have fun, like hang out with us, like let's go do something. And they weren't having it. And I had gone downstairs. It must have been on the Saturday morning-ish afternoon, after yet another like guys come downstairs and have fun like argument kind of thing, and spent the most of the afternoon downstairs. And if you weren't at the convention at that point, you were across the street at the mall, so you know you wander over the mall. It's MallCon, which is also fun, walking around seeing all the cosplayers over at the mall in the food court and at the different stores and the Best Buy. And I had wandered back over, gone back up to the room, and I remember walking in, and obviously you can tell like there's less people in the room, like there's less stuff in the room. They had left. They were gone. They were just gone. They had completely left the chat. And it was weird to me because I was like, well, how did they get home? How did they get home? I drove. And I go and I look around the room, and I had made one of the Sarahs like a makeshift kind of Hughes costume that was nowhere in sight, by the way. And all the pictures that I had printed out for him to show as Alicia like were burnt. They had somehow burnt them. Which I don't know why we didn't set off a fire alarm. I don't know why. I don't know why we didn't get in trouble, like, and the hotel didn't get burned down. But and it was just kind of like a kick in the face to me because I was like, what did I do? Like, I took it very offensively. I was like, well, what did I do wrong? Like, I thought I'd shown them, like, you know, this is fun and this is a good time. And it just obviously wasn't their thing. And at the time, being probably 17 and 18 years old, just didn't know how to use their words, I guess. So lighting things on fire seemed like the correct thing to do. They had called somebody, a parent or someone. They had come and collected them while the rest of us were out of the room. One worked for me because I got my own bed. How often do you ever get your own bed at a convention? Half time, like never. But I was still upset about it because I'd taken the time to make the costumes for them, and then they never really wore them. They never came downstairs. They didn't participate. It's like there was easier ways to tell somebody like, hey, I don't want to do this. Like, obviously not going. And, sometimes you just got to use your words, get out of a situation. But there is a silver lining to this story. Now, I was a very vengeful person, apparently, back in the day. I was like, no, I put all this time into this and all this effort into this. Like, no, I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to be Hughes because I was Roy Mustang at the time because, again, my love, my life, my everything, Roy Mustang um, at the time. And I was like, no, I'm going to be Hughes. Went over to the mall. I got a pair of glasses. Um, they didn't burn all of the pictures that I had. I think I got like one left, or I cut the corner off of it or something. So I made it work. I slicked my hair back, made myself into Maes Hughes, went downstairs. And the best part about, like, again, Full Metal Alchemist not being that popular at the time, I was the only Maes Hughes at PortCon Maine, and it blew up. It turned into like my whole personality. I didn't realize how much fun he was. I was like, Roy's cute and all, but like Hughes. And for several years after that, at hosting conventions and going to events and other things, like, he was my man. I hosted a convention in New Hampshire as him, a couple times. Boston, I wore Hughes several times in several variations. Again, met up with some people at Boston. Um, I think I might have mentioned this once before, but like bought me the shirt so I could be Hughes, which is still to this day kind of like, back then was like, oh my god, so generous. And now that I think about it, like, wow, weird that some random stranger bought me clothing. That is odd. Um, Apparently I didn't pay attention to the signs back in the day. No, I did not. But yeah, so I mean, ended up talking. I still talk to those two people. And we did talk out. They, again, long story short, they just didn't know how to tell me they weren't having fun, and their way of doing that was to aggressively burn things and just leave in the middle of the afternoon. Um, so we're still good when we talk and everything, and we've just decided that conventions are not their jam, and that's okay. It does, again, not everybody's thing, but there are other ways to tell people that don't involve fire and just disappearing, so you're worried about your friends. But yeah, so that was the crazy PortCon story. But then one of my other favorites as far as bad roommates go. You work at conventions, you get placed with people all the time. Like, sometimes you're lucky and you get to choose who you room with and it works out and you room with those people when you're working at a convention. And sometimes you go with the roll of the dice. Now, this is one of those roll of the dice stories. To preface this story, we have to go back before the convention started. I was hosting for the convention, and I wasn't rooming with the people from the masquerade anymore because they weren't even working at the convention anymore. So my normal roommates just weren't there. And I'd spent a few years paying for a hotel room for the convention. And then they decided to finally start booking room blocks for people because we had made enough or something of that nature. I'm not 100% sure. I just know I didn't have to pay for a room. I was going to take advantage of it. So I did. But I had asked the head of convention because we didn't have a lot of people on our staff. I was like, well, I wanted to bring my sister and her friend Lucas along. And I'm like, if that's going to be a problem, we'll just get a hotel room. It's not the end of the world. Like, they can do stuff on staff as well, obviously. Like, I'm not looking for just like a free hotel room for them. And it was told, no, not a problem, not a problem. Of course they can, not a problem. I'm like, okay, cool. So I was like, yeah, I guess we have a room. Like, it's all set. I was told it was all set. Sweet. So we truck up from Rhode Island and New Hampshire to go to this convention and get our bags in. And I go and I find the person who is in charge of the room blocks, who also is aware of our situation, hands me a key to the room, and we go, and it's like the end of the hallway rooms. And the very end of the hallway rooms are either really tiny or they're huge because they can fit multiple people. People is correct in the situation. There was already 4 girls in the room. And then there was 3 of us. And we get to the end of the hall. I open the door, and there they all are, like with all their stuff in an explosion everywhere. I think there was 1 bed in the room. Like, I didn't spend a lot of time in this room. It was cool because I think it had like a view of the city. Like, the windows were like really big, kind of like a slanty roof kind of almost situation. It was a cool room, like from what I remember. The girls all look at us We look at them. Like that, well, he looks at me and I look at him. Yeah, like one of those situations. And finally, they're just like, what are you doing in here? And I'm like, rooming with you guys. These are our roommates. Like, this is my sister and Lucas. Like, I was told by the head of convention that we were all rooming together, but I didn't realize there was this many people in the room. So at that point, I was like, there's got to have been some kind of a mistake. Like, maybe that we had a different room and, like, somebody got confused or something. So I was like, hey, how about you guys go back down to the lobby? Like, my sister and Lucas, obviously. I'm like, go back down to the lobby. And I will see if I can figure this out, because it's only Thursday night, so we'll figure it out. And I go on my little mission to go see if I can find the head of the con, the person in charge of, like, the room stuff. The girls in the room were just, like, so put out. And I mean, like, again, I understand, like, you don't realize you might be getting one more roommate, like, you're not told the situation ahead of time, like, but they were just so, like, disgusted by Lucas, the sweetest boy in the entire world, like, wouldn't hurt a fly, no interest in anything or anyone as far as, like, activities, we'll say, go. You know, he just wants to go have a good time, have a fun convention. He's friends with everybody, period. That's Lucas. And they see him as this, like, kind of threat almost. Which I'm laughing as I say it, because it's like, what? Like, you guys, you're good, guys. I promise you're good. I don't know how to, like, explain this anymore. So eventually, after wandering around for a little bit, I end up running into the head of the convention. I get there as the other girl from the room who had the biggest problem is there going, well, she brought a boy with her and I don't know who she thinks she is. And, like, oh, it was hilarious. So I'm standing there and I'm listening to her just, like, rail on me. Like, we've never met before this, by the way. Like, I know who it is now. I don't think we'd ever met beyond that moment, which is, again, awkward to get put into a room with people you're not even aware of. But, like, literally sitting there losing her mind, like, talking shit about me. And I'm just leaning on the wall and I'm listening and I'm listening. And head of convention turns around and goes, you mean Katy? And she looks at me and I'm just like, hi. She goes, yeah, her. And she goes, Katy, like, our masquerade host, the face of the convention, the person who's worked here longer than you've probably been alive. And, like, just her mouth drops because all of a sudden she's realized who I am. And not to be, like, a power move of any kind, but, like, been working there for a long time. People don't really recognize me out of costume unless you know me as a person. And I feel like that light bulb moment happened where it's like, I'm not just some rando, like, first year staff person that tried to sneak their friends in. I've literally been with the convention since it started. And I do believe that if there was a hole in the wall or the ground somewhere, she would have buried herself into it at that point because she realized who I was. And I was like, I feel like there's been some kind of a misunderstanding as far as rooms go, because you and I had a conversation and they agreed that there had been a misunderstanding and that we would work on finding us a room, because they did say that I could bring my sister and Lucas. So we hadn't even left our stuff in the room. And I was just like, cool, should I just go wait in the lobby? Like, we're good. They're like, yeah, sure. Meanwhile, again, the girl's just trying to, like, shiv a knife out of, like, a potted plant in the hallway to make a scooping device for herself. Because now she's realized that I know that she thinks that I'm a bitch. Even though no conversation was really had in the room. I was just like, cool, I'll go figure out what's wrong. It's like, eee. I forget to mention, though, in the story, because I did leave Melissa and Lucas with them for a few moments. They had pulled out multiple bottles of alcohol in the room and were offering it to them, I believe, while I was gone. They are very hospitable, weird people, but yeah. Long story short, we ended up getting a room, no problem. It was just the three of us, which worked out. And from that point on, I believe we just ended up rooming together and not worrying about getting a room from the convention anymore, because kind of a cluster. I think there was supposed to be one more person in the room with us. Never saw them that whole weekend. Because they were like, me and my sister shared a bed. Lucas had the other bed, more than willing to share with anybody. But we even came back during like the afternoon thinking, oh, they must work late shift or something. They'll be here. Well, no, never saw them. Never saw them check in, never heard them. And if they did, like, we never saw their stuff. It was very ninja-like. And I don't know if that's like a good roommate to have or like an even weirder roommate to have, or if they just never showed up. But even better was throughout this weekend, now that person who lost her mind, figured out who I was, tried to schmooze me whenever she saw me because she was on guest relations, and would just try to be like, oh my God, Katy, hi, I'm so sorry about that misunderstanding. And I'm like, you're not, but it's okay. Like, you're just embarrassed as fuck. And I don't blame you. It was embarrassing for her. Like, it's like, just don't be trash. Like, there's a misunderstanding. We work through it like adults. And this is far past my 19-year-old years. I don't know how old she was. I mean, I gotta assume she was somewhere in like the middle of her 20s or something, but like, not a good look. But yeah, those are like the two other craziest stories that I have. Again, been very fortunate to room with mostly my friends and stuff at these conventions. I mean, I could tell a wild story of rooming with an ex after we had broken up, but I mean, that story pretty much speaks for itself. It was a bad idea. 10/10 don't recommend. Yeah, just getting in fights in front of your other friends, it's uncomfy. It's not good. Me and said ex are good now. Probably still wouldn't room together though. I mean, who knows? Maybe we would. I can't speak for the other person in that relationship, but just don't room with people you're gonna fight with. Nope, don't recommend it. Don't let yourself be stuck in situations where you feel like you're gonna be uncomfy. It's 2022. We need to start speaking our minds and speaking up for ourselves. If you feel like you're going to be tossed into a situation that is no bueno, then don't do it to yourself. It's not worth it for the free room. I'm telling you right now. It's just not worth it. But again, I'm very fortunate to room with mostly my friends over the years, or staff people that I've worked with a million times over. We all fall into a system of when the shower is in use, bathroom is in use, who's going to be in the room at what time in case a nap is being had and or a costume change needs to be done. Gonna bring it up. This past weekend's the four of us, we rocked it. Something you could never avoid though is snoring. And that's not against them. I love them all so much. That's against anybody I've roomed with. I know I probably also snore. Who doesn't snore? People snore. But I just, as a person, can't sleep when people snore. The lovely Robert is aware of that. I think I almost killed him one night. So, fun story. We were in a room together many moons ago at Anime Boston, and me, the ex, Jess, Shiva, and Rob, and we're all in the room together, and it's late night. And if I don't fall asleep first, I don't know why. Like, it works if I fall asleep first. I don't have to worry about like it, but I didn't. And Rob, poor Rob, snoring away, enjoying his slumber. I finally ended up getting up, I think wailing him with a pillow. I don't even know if he recalls the situation, but literally just like, you need to wake up and roll over, just wailing on him. And that's been a few times with him, but again, what are you gonna do? People snore. It's fine. It's part of the fun of the weekend. It's not fun at the time when you really need to sleep, but what can you do? Oh, trying to think if there's any other big incidents. I really, again, so fortunate as far as the roommates go. It's just, I'm enjoying this episode because now I'm just recalling all the times that I've had to share beds. Oh God, the first Boston that I had 4 people. We got a room down there. I did a skit at Anime Boston. It was 2008. And I had booked a double room, and we got to the hotel and they gave us a king, which I'm sure is like a tale as old as time for a lot of people, as far as reservations go, because if you don't get to the hotel fast enough or you're not guaranteed a double, you end up with a king and 4 people sleeping in that bed. And oh god, so uncomfortable. It's so bad. 4 like average size people do not fit side by side in a king size bed. And I don't know if it's better to be on the edge of the bed or the inside of the bed. And I'll never know because I'm never sleeping in that situation again. But I was in the middle of the bed and it was awful. 10/10, don't recommend. But I've also been in a situation where I get to a room and they have pushed the 2 full size beds together to make one mecha bed. Which, I mean, okay, cool. But then someone has to sleep in that weird, like, gap between the beds. Um, been there. Don't recommend. It's like, guys, we could have slept in 2 separate beds. There's only, 4 people in this room. I don't know why we all have to sleep in one massive bed together. Especially when nothing's happening. So, anyways. Yeah, just like weird little situations. But I guess, you go to conventions for almost 20 years. You're not going to have like, oh, I've checked in. I've had a normal experience. And now I'm leaving every single time. Maybe you did. Maybe you're one of those lucky few people. I think about it now too. It's like, everyone's like, what would I do if I was a multimillionaire? Like, what would I do with my money? And my answer is I would get a hotel room to myself at a convention. Granted, I would invite people over to come hang out and stuff, but I feel like that would be the most clutch situation for me in my old convention going years. Maybe one other roommate. I haven't decided yet. For now, though, I will enjoy rooming with my fellow staff members because we all have a great time together. But future conventions, going off into the world to actually go to a convention not within, a 40-mile radius. Who knows? The world's my oyster, right? All right, guys. I think that's enough rambling for this week. Definitely. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. You can always like and subscribe over on YouTube. You can also go and follow us on our Twitter account and our Facebook account for updates. I do the best I can to keep people posted on when episodes are coming out and guests are coming out. I've also got a book you guys can purchase over on the Amazon. It's called That Could Have Gone Worse, Life Lessons from a Dinosaur Cosplayer. I spent Anime Boston weekend selling a few and then also leaving a couple out signed around the convention center. If you were one of those lucky people that found one, congratulations. I hope you enjoy it. Anybody that purchases a copy off of Amazon now through the end of next month, I will be donating $1 out to the Sandy Hook Promise, which is against gun violence and trying to figure out this whole situation with guns and mass shootings. $1 will also be going to the Trevor Project, which is a charity near and dear to my heart. I always make a donation to the Trevor Project every year, especially at Christmas time in J.K. Rowling's name, because she's a TERF and we have no time for it. She will not ruin my childhood. I will make sure to always make a donation in her name, because you know what, Joe? There's got to be something good that comes out of you now. But yes, $1 from each book going to both of those foundations until the end of July. Possibly longer. We'll see how it goes. We've got a sizable donation going right now, so thanks to everybody who has already purchased a book. Let's see. I think that's everything because I don't have a convention coming up to promote that I'm going to at the moment. But the year is young. And things do change. So stay tuned. I'm hoping to do some Convention Confessional Live again in the near future. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. You're great. If you have any stories, you can always get a hold of me and come on the show. I want guests of all types, all different stories. I love hearing stories. That's what this podcast is about. Have a great night, everybody.